This is going to be my last video involving performing operations with our imaginary numbers, and this video is going to include the most challenging of the examples. So in this problem, we have a binomial times a binomial. We're going to multiply the quantity of 3 minus 2i times the quantity of 5 plus I. Remember, anytime you take a binomial times a binomial, you want to use the idea of foiling. We want to distribute this 3 to both of these terms. We want to distribute this negative 2i to both of these terms. So the f part of FOIL, our first term's 3 times 5, that's just 15. Next, distribute that 3 to the I. 3 times I would be plus 3i. Okay, we've taken care of the 3. Let's distribute this negative 2. Negative 2i. Negative 2i times positive 5, that would be minus 10i. And last but not least, negative 2i, include the sign there. Negative 2i times positive I would be negative 2i squared. All right. So we took care of the foiling process. Let's make that substitution. I don't want to forget about that. I squared is the same thing as negative 1, so that's just going to turn into a negative 1. And let's rewrite the rest of this stuff. I have 15. These are like terms right here. Both of these, this is positive 3i minus 10i. We have 7 more negatives in this situation, so this is going to be minus 7i. Minus, and then you have that 2 times negative 1. Well, 2 times negative 1, that's just negative 2. So bring in the minus sign down, bring the rest of this down. So this is 15 minus 7i minus negative 2. Subtracting a negative, that's the same as adding. So we can think of this as 15 minus 7i plus 2. Combine our like terms. Positive 15 and positive 2 would be 17. And you have this minus 7i here. Final answer would be 17 minus 7i. Let's see what we have next. All right, so in this one we have the quantity 2 minus 5i squared. All right, so one thing that might be tempting, it might be tempting for you to distribute this squared to both of these terms. Don't do that. Remember that when you square something, you're multiplying it by itself. So the better idea here would be to think of this as 2 minus the quantity of 2 minus 5i times the quantity of 2 minus 5i. And this is one of your special patterns that you learned about previously for squaring a quantity like this. Anyway, let's FOIL this thing out. 2 times 2 is 4. 2 times negative 5i would be negative 10i. Negative 5i times 2, that's another negative 10i. And here, just to make you aware of what that factoring pattern is. The quantity a minus b squared would be a squared minus 2ab plus b squared. So this negative 10i and negative 10i would be doubling that a times that b. And then the last part here, so we took care of 2 times 2. We did negative 5i times 2, negative 5i times 2. Now we got to do negative 5i times negative 5i. That'll be plus 25i squared. All right, moving on. We can combine these like terms. This is 4 minus 20i plus 25 times negative 1. I squared is the same thing as negative 1. So this is 4 minus 20i minus 25. 4 minus 25 is negative 21. So we have negative 21 minus 20i. And we're done. All right, let's take a look at another one. Wow, what a mess we have here. So we have the quantity of I plus 2i times the quantity of 6 minus 5i times the quantity of 4 plus 7i. All right, so let's just start multiplying this thing out. So we got a binomial times a binomial. Let's take care of this. So 1 times 6 is 6. 1 times negative 5i would be minus 5i. We distributed the 1. Let's distribute the 2. 2i times 6 plus 12i. 2i times negative 5i would be negative 10i squared. All right, and don't forget, we still have this 4 plus 7i we're going to have to deal with. And I just realized I forgot the square here. 2i times negative 5i is negative 10i squared. All right, let's clean this up a little bit. This is 6. Negative 5i plus 12i would be positive 7i minus 10. And I squared is the same thing as negative 1. So I'm just making that substitution there. And let's bring this down. Negative 10 and negative 1 would be positive 10, or you can think of this as 10 times negative 1, which is negative 10. Subtracting negative 10 is the same thing as adding 10. So this is 6 plus 7i plus 10 times this 4 plus 7i. 6 and 10 would be 16. So we have 16 plus 7i. And we still have to multiply by that 4 plus 7i. So we got to FOIL again here. 16 fours. 16 times 4, that's 64. 16 times 7. So what is 16 times 7? So 7 times 6 is 42. So we're looking at 112 there. So this is plus 112i. 7i times 4 would be plus 28i. And we have 7i times 7i, which would be plus 49i squared. All right, so we have 64 plus 112 and 28. Well, in terms of the ones place here, this makes a group of 10. 2 plus 8 would make a group of 10. So we have 11 tens plus 2 tens, that's 13 tens, plus one group of 10 here, that's 14 tens. This is going to be 140i. Plus 49 times I squared was negative 1. So this is going to be negative 49. So we have 64 plus 140i minus 49. 64 minus 49, what is that? So that would be 15, right? So we have 15 plus 140i. All right, I'm going to take a look at just a couple more examples. I think I have 2 more in here that I'd like to show you. So 3i plus 2i times 4i. So this one's an important problem because so many people want to add first here. Don't ruin your order of operations. You have to multiply first. You have to take care of this 2i plus 4i as your first step. So this will be 3i plus 8i squared. I squared is negative 1. So this is 3i plus 8 times negative 1. 8 times negative 1 is negative 8. So this one is just going to be negative 8 plus 3i. Last problem. The quantity 3i cubed. So this is really, when you cube something, you're multiplying it by itself 3 times. This is really 3i times 3i times 3i. All right, so 3 times 3 is 9, times another 3 is 27. I multiplied together would be I cubed. And it might be easier to break this up and think of this I cubed as I squared times I. I squared is negative 1. Let's make that substitution. And 27 times negative 1 is negative 27. Final answer, negative 27i. Thanks for hanging in there for the whole video.